Hello and welcome to Dialogue. China is kicking off its annual political season this week. Today marked the opening of the 14th National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, the country's top advisory body. The annual meeting, together with that of the National People's Congress, are known as two sessions, which highlight China's political calendar each year. So how is the CPPCC different from the NPC? What role does the top advisory body play in the Chinese practice of democracy? And who are the members of the CPPCC? Join us for our discussion today from Beijing. I'm Xu Qinduo. Joining me today are Vincent Mo, chairman of UpSky Energy Group and member of the 13th National Committee of the CPPCC. Xia Lu, associate professor at the School of Marxism Studies at the Renmin University of China, and John Ross, senior fellow at the Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies of Renmin University of China. Welcome to Dialogue. So, Xia Lu, I will start with you. For those who are not exactly familiar, with the Chinese political system, especially those, overseas audience, tell us, what is the CPPCC?
Okay, if we want to know how the CPPCC works these days, let me just go back to the origin of the CPPCC and to see how it worked and how it functioned in the early days of the People's Republic of China. Actually, the CPPCC was actually founded earlier than the People's Republic of China, and it provided the legitimacy or legitimate foundation for the new China. And during the period from 1949 to 1954, the CPPCC actually functioned as the legislative and the most supreme political apparatus in People's Republic of China. But after 1954, the CPPCC was still there, and actually it still works until these days as the advisory body. So there are three functions, main functions of the CPPCC. The first one is a political consultation. The second one is the supervision. And the third one is to offer or provide professional, let's say, opinions based on those kind of previous officials' kind of experience. So basically, the CPPCC is a main political organ to provide professional opinion for governance, management, and other kind of civil management, and also the supervision, especially the supervision to the key officials and the cadres in particular organs. So that's the thing.
Supervision of the government work.
Yeah.
At the same time, of course, there's a constitution process, and also it provides advice. Proposals to the government in terms of governance.
Right.
And then, who are the members of the CPPCC?
Well, actually, there are at least 5 levels. 4 to 5 levels of the CPPCC, from national level to the local level. Well, when we talk about the national level committee, actually there are more than 2,000 members, and all these kind of members actually come from 34 sections. The 34 sections are, let's say, different political groups, political parties like the CPC itself, like the 8 democratic parties, like other kind of organization, like the All China Federation of the Trade Union, All China Federation of the Women Organization, and the All China the Youth League, and so on and so forth. So actually, we can say that the members are from all walks of life. They could represent the Chinese people.
It's inclusive, let's say.
Right, inclusive.
All walks of life.
Right. Yeah.
I know, Vincent, you yourself, were a member of the CPPCC a couple of years ago, right? Tell us your experience. Like, how was you recommended, selected, or elected to join the CPPCC, and what have you done?
Well, I served 3 terms. And 2 terms in provincial level in Guangxi province. And 1 term for general member, and the 2nd term for standing committee of local provincial CPPCC. And the last term is a national committee. I think it's not elected first. And the member of the CPPCC is sort of appointed, but through consultation. It's recommended by different organizations, and then it went through a proving process and eventually approved by the National Committee. So that's really the selection process. But the 2,000 plus members of the National Committee it's not easy to get in. So that's
for sure. You know, that's 1.4 billion people.
Yeah, really. So it's an honor, for me to be there. So as a member of the CPPC, there is a national annual session. We call it 2 sessions, including NPC. So usually it takes a week to 10 days. That's the annual session. And during the year, if you are a standing committee member, you probably need to quarterly session. You have to attend the quarterly meetings. And if there are 8 or 9 committees under the national committee, if you're a member of the committee member, and you probably every other month you need to attend the different meetings. I was in the Foreign Affairs Committee when I was a member of the national committee. So we meet at least 6 times a year to discuss different things.
Well, anything impressive, like any recommendation and proposals you made or you jointly made with the other members to the government?
Well, that's a responsibility or the role as a member you can play for the national committee or provincial committee as well. In my memory, in my 5 years as a member of the national committee, every year I had at least about 4 proposals, alone, and plus some collective, proposals with other members of the national committee. One of my proposals is for during the COVID, when I was still in the U.S. For Chinese New Year, and because I have contacts with local Chinese people in the U.S., so I wrote a proposal about how Chinese government could help, those overseas Chinese, because at that time, especially in the U.S., China is sort of, isolated in multiple ways. So that proposal was, ranked on the top of the 1,000 proposals of that year. That's one, and another. Most of my proposals are in my fields. It's real estate and the internet. I was in that industry. So how to monitor or regulate real estate market, because the price hiked a lot in the past. When I was a member. So that was also very useful and very important for the central government to think about how to regulate and how to make sure the price is, the price increase in a reasonable range. So those are the proposals I remember are important.
Well, we have John. John, of course, you are a long-time observer, analyst of the Chinese politics, economy. At the same time, you live in the West, in the UK. Tell us your experience, the differences, for example, the Chinese system, how the Chinese system works. How is it different from that in the UK or in the US, European countries, for example?
Well, it's much more effective and successful. That's its main feature. I mean, if we look at the present situation we've got in the West, you've got a situation whereby people vote against people. I mean, if you look at the US presidential election poll, for example, you have a situation whereby Biden is extremely unpopular and Trump is extremely unpopular. They all have negative ratings, and you sort of vote on the basis of who you dislike least. And the result of which is, therefore, all the opinion polls show that the great majority of the American people think that the country is going in the wrong direction. A majority, because that's a regular question, is the country going in the right direction or the wrong direction? And the answer that comes up at the present time is going in the wrong direction. We have something similar in Britain, in which neither the Labour Party nor the Conservative Party is very popular. What you see in China is, because you've got an effective system which delivers things, that on the contrary, if you take Pew Research, which is International Polling Agency, its former head used to be Madeleine Albright, who can't be accused of being pro-China, and it found that the great majority of the Chinese people, frequently over 90%, thought that the country was going in the right direction. So that's the main feature about the thing. And the second thing which I notice is the professionalism, what's discussed. And a large amount of what takes place in the Western system is controlled by money. That's the incredible feature in the United States. I mean, it's the only system I know, and I regularly listen to TV broadcasts in which the main eye is how much money that each candidate has raised. So you've got a system which is being run by money. That doesn't happen in the situation in China. And secondly, there's a great deal of demagogy in which people say that they're going to do various things, and very notoriously, they're elected on one position, they do something else when they get into office. Whereas in China, in general, the government puts out its positions, and these are carried out. So it's most important is it's a much more effective system.
Well, John, of course, you mentioned one important word, deliver. Whether whatever system you have is really about whether it delivers, whether it's a response to the people's request, to the people's that's the expectation, for example. From that perspective, how do you evaluate? How do you say the Chinese system, for example, on programs like poverty alleviation, which is universally acknowledged a huge success?
Well, I've said it many times that China since 1949 is the greatest achievement in human rights of any country in the whole of history. And I'm not saying that to be polite. I'm saying it as a serious, considered position. Let's look at the results. In 1949, China was almost the poorest country in the world from the point of per capita GDP. The statistics show there are only 10 countries in the world which had a lower per capita GDP than China. There are various estimates of life expectancy, range between 35 and slightly over 40, but let's call it around 40. To put it that way. Okay, right. Let's go forward. What is it now? 75 years. In this case, right? China is on the brink of being a high-income economy by World Bank standards. It's less than $1,000 per capita GDP away from being a high-income economy. It's got a bigger population than all the high-income economies in the world put together, all the other ones. That means in 75 years, in a single lifetime, a citizen of China has gone from being almost the poorest country in the world to being on the brink of a high-income economy. Their life expectancy of somebody in that time has approximately doubled. It's now slightly over 78 years average life expectancy, whereas previously it was about 40. This is the biggest. It's a miracle. I mean, it's not a miracle because it's not inexplicable. It's not something strange you can't explain. But from the point of the step forward in the lives of people, and China, as you know, around 18% of the world's population, there has never been such a big step forward for such a large number of people in such a short time in the whole of human history. And that's just a fact. It's not being polite.
Xiaolu, of course, this is the two sessions special period in the political calendar of the year. So we talked about the CPPCC a little bit. Of course, along with the CPPCC, there's a key body that is NPC, National People's Congress. Tell us how different they are.
Okay. Well, first of all, National People's Congress, the NPC, is the legislative council or is the legislative kind of body for China. But the CPPCC, the Political Consultative Conference, is the only advisory body. And it does not have the legislation or legislative function, but it can provide professional opinion towards the making of the law or improvement of the law. And the other important distinctive feature between NPC and the CPPCC is that the NPC actually has the function of elect or select the key state leaders, for China. But the CPPCC does not have this function. So that's the two, we can say main distinctive features for these two bodies. Yeah.
Well, Vincent, you yourself, you from this business community, you are giving advice on the business, let's say, front there. Your primary responsibility as a chairman of your company, I believe, of course, is to grow the company, more profit and more benefits for your employees, for your stakeholders there. At the same time, does that, as a member of the CPPCC, give you a special, sense of responsibility or duty, for helping basically the government, how to regulate, how to better monitor, and how to support even, as long as it, is, let's say, well coordinated with the reality on the ground?
That's for sure, definitely. As the chairman of the company, of course, we need to make it greater and make it more profitable, for shareholders, for the employees, and eventually also pay more tax to the
Right.
to the country, to the government. So that's our duty.
But there's a balance for you too.
As a member of the national committee, and we are playing a different role. In that role, and we are thinking about the country, thinking about the whole, sectors or whole industry, how to make this the internet and in the real estate, and now in this new energy sector. So I need to think about what will be the best for this sector, for this industry, for the market, not specifically for my company. As long as we have a macro very good environment there, and our micro company can survive much better in a situation. So being a member of the national committee, we need to be responsible for the country, for the industry. So I think that's the contribution we can contribute to the national committee.
Yeah, that's obviously a much larger responsibility than being the chairman of the company there. Professor Xia, if you look at this NPC, CPC, whatever system we have here, I mean, the government is supposed to be responsive to the need of the people, expectation of the people, and also is expected to deliver, to represent the entire population, the people there. How does the Chinese system ensure the government being representative of the will of the people through CPPCC or NPC here?
Well, I think just now Professor Ross through internet online has already mentioned one of the distinction or one of the distinctive feature between political system in China and in the West. Well, actually, when we, let's say, teach comparative politics in class, well, we all face the students' question, what's the difference between the West and China, and what's the kind of a different function, between the Western political system and the Chinese political system? Well, in my opinion, one of the, I couldn't say I can, cover all this distinction, but I would like to say one of the key points in the Western political system, particularly in recent time, is that it has already become, or it has increasingly become a vetocracy. It's kind of a vetocracy, veto plus acracy. Vetocracy means that in this political system, well, people only want to, people only, aims at denying or neglecting or voting against the other group. Okay, so we don't care about promote new things. We only care about I don't agree with you, so I just vote against you. So largely it would become a vetocracy. Well, people only disagree in the sake of or with the sake of disagree. They don't want to promote some kind of new things or practicable kind of solution for the issue. It's not issue oriented. It's not practice oriented. It's just I would like to say idea oriented. I just want to disagree with you for the sake of disagree with you. But it's different in China. In China, the Chinese political system focuses more on inclusion, focus more on integration, focus more on solidarity, and also focus more on, of course, the social order and the stability of the economy and society. So based off, most of all, Chinese leaders focus on to solve the problem rather than to, create new problem. Right? Just like one of the economists said, the Western government, it has become the issue itself rather than solving the issue. So in my opinion, that's the difference between China and the Western political system. Yeah.
Well, in the Chinese system, the Chinese government is, let's say, a lot of discussion. One feature of that is being pragmatic.
Right.
Solve issues. You deal with issues like
right.
People have, or the concerns that people have. How to deal with that. In the Chinese way, that's really the debate, the discussion.
Right.
And despite all the progress China has made over the past 40+ years, John, still you see, especially given the background of U.S. rivalry against China here, you have the U.S. Either media or politicians, regularly they basically call China one-party rule, communist China. What's your response to that?
Well, I think the best comment on this was the one that President Xi Jinping made, which he said, only the person wearing the shoe knows whether it fits or not.
Right.
I mean, China doesn't advocate its political system for anyone else. I mean, every country in the world is absolutely unique. that's just necessarily so, because it's a different combination of economy, different combination of society, different combination of culture, different combination of history, all sorts of things. So China doesn't advocate that it has everybody else adopts its political system. It's a big mistake by the United States to take the reverse course, because the United States says everybody's got to have our political system. Well, that's created no end of trouble. I mean, what happened when they tried to impose that on Iraq, for example? The Middle East was turned into a hotbed of terrorism, and many hundreds of thousands of people were killed. China officially doesn't proclaim that it wants its system adopted elsewhere. It says it works for us, and the facts show that it does work for China. The ones that I discussed earlier. If you take the United States, I don't actually think it works terribly well for the United States, but that's the American people decide what their political system is. But what is absolutely mad is to try to impose it upon other people. And this has led to as I said, Iran, Libya, many other types of disasters on this. So what I think is the case with the question of China is you have to judge it by the results. Why do the polls show that the satisfaction with the government is very high? And I don't mean polls conducted by the Chinese government. I mean polls conducted by, American polling agencies. They find a high degree of satisfaction because it's work. It's delivering results. In other words, as President Xi put it, the shoe fits. That doesn't mean there are no problems. Of course there are problems, but these are relative problems. They're more small problems compared to the ones which you have in the United States at the present time. So I think you have to judge a system by what its results are. And that's what most people are. Most people, let's be blunt, are not interested in politics, or they're not interested. It's not their main priority. It's normally the sign that, they want to go with their family life, their business, their culture, their hobbies or whatever. Normally, if everybody's discussing politics all the time, it means there's a big crisis going on. Because certainly that's the experience in my country. And I think in most world. And the big thing about China deals with problems which come up, which are some of them, it's a much, much richer country than it was previously. So this creates new issues. And it goes forward, and that's what people judge by. They're not interested in the technicalities of the process in any country. They're interested in what the result is, and the outcome in China shows that the shoe fits.
Yes, this is really up to the Chinese people, in terms of the system, in terms of the expectation, in terms of the practice, of course, based on the Chinese culture, tradition, and economy, etc. Speak of that, of course, the two sessions is, have the focus, have all the attention on the political function, on the economy, on the country, for the next year, for example. So, Winston, I will start with you. What's your expectation? What's the focus for these two sessions, for this year's two sessions? Like, what do you think? Or based on the information you have, based on the talks you have, probably with your colleagues, with your friends, what's the top concern? What's the top issue for this year?
Well, before the two sessions, the national two sessions, and China has already had the provincial and the city level two sessions already, and we have seen different proposals, different suggestions from local CPPCC. I summarized a little bit, how many categories of topics. And one very important category is really the stability and the revive of the general economy. So that's very important. We have been under pressure for slowing down. The growth is slowing down. We still have growth there, but it is slowing down. So that's a pressure to everybody, to the government, to the business sector, also to the human, to our general, society. So I think that will be one of the focus of these two sessions. And secondly, more specifically, I've been noticing that the real estate sector or real estate industry is one industry which has been experiencing a lot of difficulties in the past 3 years, including some of the top companies in the past. They are gone or they went bankruptcy. So and the people, they bought properties, and they may not be able to to move in, on time.
Right.
So and the prices now is right. It's the right price, to buy properties. But how to secure you can move in on time. So real estate is definitely a hot topic. And second topic specifically is the financial market, is the stock market. We have experienced a sort of sharp decline just before the Chinese New Year. But now it's back a little bit, but it still needs stabilization to make sure the stock market or financial market could perform and could support the general economy. The third topic, I think, is new energy. That has been emerging in the past 3 years, which are becoming a pilot, also the most important industry of China's general economy for now and into the future, 10 years. China has already been leading the world in new energy. But I think if we spend more efforts, focus more on this industry and this sector, I think China could keep the momentum going on. So make sure China lead the world in climate change, in new energy sector, and the related sectors as well.
Xiaolu, what's your observation?
Well, based on my observation, I actually anticipate or expect that there are two major issues. The first one, of course, is national economy, just Mr. Mo mentioned, and especially to accelerate. I see a lot of local PPCC, their proposal or their report focus on the speed and focus on the urgency, the urgent kind of need for accelerate or the reboom of the economy, not only some certain industry, but the overall economy, right? That's the thing. And the second thing is that this year marks the 75th anniversary of the founding of the PRC and also the CPPCC. So it will focus, I hope it will focus on the unity, the national unity, and this kind of particular issue. So this is also one of the functions that should be played by the CPPCC, right?
Well, John, briefly, what's your expectation of the focus of these two sessions, this year's two sessions?
Well, I obviously see it from an international angle. I agree that with the economic situation, but I would put an international economic situation because if we take the balance sheet of the last 4 years since the pandemic, China's economy grew by 20% and the US economy grew by 8%. I know that the US is carrying a lot of propaganda saying it's doing very well economically, but it's not. China's economy grew 2.5 times as fast as the US. And unfortunately, there are irresponsible circles in the United States who want to use economic pressure, tariffs, or even military-related issues, such as pressure on Taiwan and other things to create problems. So I think it's going to be the economic situation, both in its direct consequences and in its indirect consequences, that will be key. That would be my observation from outside. I'm sure there are many things in China that people there know, which I would not be able to, I would not express an opinion on.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Xiaolu and Vincent. Well, with that, we come to the end of today's discussion. Many thanks to our guests again. You can also follow us on the CGTN app on YouTube. I'm Xu Xinduo. Thanks for being with us. See you next time.
Facing the unknown is always difficult. In a world in turmoil, it's easy to lose orientation. But when the storms come, we have to see the possibilities. Reinvent. Find new opportunities. Discover a path forward. CGTN. See the difference.
This is The World Today on CGTN. I'm Sacheng in Beijing. Our top story. The South Korean government is taking steps to suspend the licenses of approximately 7,000 doctors who have not yet returned to the hospital site. Our Yu has more from Seoul.
Well, in the second week after junior doctors left training hospitals, the South Korean government is initiating procedures to suspend the licenses of roughly 7,000 trainee doctors who have not yet returned to the hospital site.